Eagle Ridge, Ohio, in late spring, is exactly the kind of town that makes strangers believe everything is charming and locals know exactly what they're doing, which is about 70% true. Tree-lined streets glistened with morning dew, the scent of fresh-cut grass mixed with the occasional waft of muffins cooling on café windowsills. Lawns were neatly trimmed, porches adorned with American flags and flower pots, and the occasional neighbor jogged by in pastel sportswear like a Hallmark commercial come to life. On a day like this, the air felt alive, playful, and maybe a little mischievous, a perfect day for disasters disguised as minor miracles. At the center of this town's sunny chaos stood Elliot Harper, 32, handyman and hobby painter, a man whose hands bore streaks of paint, his jeans a permanent archive of coffee stains and sawdust, and whose hair stubbornly refused any notion of conformity. He had been asked to help with the town's annual spring block party, a weekend event with food trucks, live music, a small stage for local bands, and, notoriously, the Great Community Tree Climb competition, which involved kids, teens, and occasionally adults trying to decorate the massive oak in the town square with handmade ornaments. Elliot, slightly claustrophobic around crowds but never one to refuse a call for help, had just tied down a display of handmade birdhouses when a collective gasp rippled through the square. And then he saw it. A cat, perched perilously on the roof of Mrs. Jeanette Thompson's corner cafe, its orange and white fur ruffled by the light spring breeze. It was Mr. Whiskers, the cafe's unofficial mascot, notorious for his curious streak, and currently in the middle of what would later be remembered as the town's most cinematic fall. Not again, Elliot muttered, gripping a ladder like it might somehow save him from the inevitable. The cat's tail flicked once, a tiny flag of rebellion, and the entire square seemed to inhale in synchronized horror. Children pointed, parents shrieked, and the local photographer, Sam Rivera, dropped his camera in shock. Sam, 29, perpetually cheerful, and slightly clumsy himself, was notorious for trying to film every small-town incident as if it were an Oscar-winning scene. He'd already tripped over a flower pot earlier in the morning, earning a standing ovation from the preschoolers nearby. "Elliot!" shouted Mrs. Thompson from below, waving her hands. Her cardigan flapped in the wind, a basket of muffins precariously balanced on one arm. "Do something. That's my Mr. Whiskers." Elliot squinted at the cat, imagining the various scenarios: a graceful landing, a comic tumble, a total disaster that would haunt him in emails for weeks. He cursed his lack of proper cat rescue training. The cat leapt. It was slow motion, terrifying and hilarious all at once. Its legs splayed, fur puffed like it had swallowed helium, and its expression seemed almost philosophical. "I regret nothing." Immediately, the square erupted into chaos. Children scattered like confetti, a balloon vendor screamed as a pack of deflated helium spheres bounced across the cobblestones, and a street musician attempted to keep playing the trumpet, only to backpedal into a lemonade stand, sending cups flying like tiny rockets. Elliot sprinted, half slipping on spilled lemonade. "Watch it, Sam!" he yelled. "Get out of the way." But Sam, camera swinging wildly, was already recording, narrating with dramatic flair, and here we see the heroic Elliot Harper attempting a splat. He slipped on a stray muffin, landing on his back with the kind of dignity reserved for clowns in silent films. "Why do all of my rescue attempts involve public humiliation?" Elliot muttered to himself. Meanwhile, Leela Morgan, a sharp-witted veterinary nurse who happened to be walking her dog past the square, assessed the scene with the precision of someone who had seen exactly this scenario too many times. "Elliot," she called, "don't jump from the ladder unless you want to add stitches to your day." But Elliot was already halfway up a shaky scaffold, the wind tugging at his sleeves, and the cat performing what could only be described as aerial parkour. It hit the roof edge, bounced slightly, and, miraculously, managed to grab onto the gutter, dangling like an orange and white ornament in the breeze. A child screamed. A dog barked. Mrs. Thompson fainted slightly, only to recover when someone offered her a muffin. Elliot inched forward. "Okay, Mr. Whiskers," he said, voice a mix of threat and encouragement, "let's do this. You jump, I catch, probably." The cat, sensing drama, took a leap that defied probability and, for a moment, time itself seemed suspended. Everyone held their breath, even the street musician, whose trumpet was still squeaking accidentally. And then, splash. Mr. Whiskers landed safely, perfectly on a conveniently placed stack of cardboard boxes from the local hardware store, which had, in an inspired coincidence, formed an unintentional cushioned landing pad. The cat shook itself off, tail flicking with utter disdain, and strutted across the boxes like a tiny, victorious king surveying a conquered kingdom. The square erupted into applause. Sam fell backward again, triumphant camera still recording. Sheer heroism, he announced. Elliot Harper and Mr. Whiskers, legends of Eagle Ridge. Elliot, muddy and sticky from lemonade, looked around at the crowd, kids cheering, neighbors laughing, Mrs. Thompson hugging the cat, and realized something. He hadn't just saved a cat. In the middle of chaos, he had been part of a community moment, a shared ridiculousness, a reminder that life sometimes throws you off balance, but a soft landing, or at least a humorous one, is often waiting if you're lucky. The narrator might have leaned in here, tone conspiratorial, life, like cats, will fling you unpredictably. But community, quick thinking, and a bit of luck. That's your landing pad. As Elliot helped Mrs. Thompson dust off the muffins, Leela checked the cat. All good, she confirmed. No scratches, no bruises. Perfect landing. Couldn't have planned it better. Literal and metaphorical, Elliot said, watching Mr. Whiskers patrol the boxes with the air of a feline general. He falls, but he lands. Kind of like life. The square slowly returned to its usual rhythm. Food trucks resumed serving, children chased each other. Sam attempted to vlog again, now holding a roll of paper towels to dry himself. A sudden spring shower hit, sprinkling everyone lightly, but instead of panic, people laughed, shaking off the rain. Elliot noticed the small details, the brick of the café glistening under wet sun, the newly painted shutters on neighbors' houses, the pastel dresses of children twirling through puddles, the faint smell of lilacs from Mrs. Thompson's garden. All of it felt connected, the fall, the chaos, the safe landing. A mosaic of small-town life, stitched together by shared laughter and tiny disasters. By the afternoon, Mr. Whiskers had perched atop the cafe roof again, eyes narrowing in judgment at Elliot. Maybe I should have let him fall again, Elliot muttered, half joking. But the crowd's laughter reminded him, falling isn't failing, and sometimes the most memorable moments are the ones where you nearly trip, nearly fail, and still end up upright. And as the sun broke through lingering clouds, casting golden light across the square, Elliot understood the magic of Eagle Ridge, messy, unpredictable, funny, and oddly motivational. Life might push you into public spectacles, flinging you like a cat from a rooftop, but if you're willing to get up, laugh, and let others help, you might just land safe. And maybe, just maybe, the landing is better than the climb. By the next morning, Eagle Ridge had recovered from its rooftop cat spectacle, but the memory lingered in smiles, conversation, and a surprising number of social media posts. Even the local news had a short segment titled, Eagle Ridge Heroics, Cat vs. Gravity, featuring shaky footage of Sam Rivera narrating like a sports commentator. Elliot Harper, despite his lingering pride, preferred the quieter side of heroism, coffee in hand, jeans still dusted with paint, surveying the square for potential chaos before it happened. Mr. Whiskers, true to his independent feline spirit, had returned to his preferred perch atop Mrs. Thompson's cafe, looking down at the world as if he were the mayor in miniature. Elliot sighed. The cat had survived, yes, but he was not finished with being a symbol of life's unpredictable lessons. The town spring block party continued, a mosaic of laughter, music, and light chaos. Children raced along the streets with bubble wands, sprinklers forming rainbows in the sunlight. The local band played a cheerful tune with slightly offbeat timing, as always, and neighbors chatted, swapping garden tips and cookie recipes. It was small-town America at its finest, messy, charming, and vibrant. Elliot's phone buzzed. A message from Leela Morgan. You really saved him. And maybe everyone's sanity. Come by the vet for celebratory coffee. He chuckled. Not sure if the cat or the town deserves the medal, but okay. By mid-afternoon, Elliot found himself walking toward Leela's veterinary clinic, a modest brick building with a cheerful teal door and a small flower garden out front. Inside, the air smelled faintly of antiseptic, catnip, and freshly baked dog treats, a comforting, oddly motivating mix. Leela greeted him with a grin and a coffee cup, her scrubs dusted with cat fur. Hero of Eagle Ridge, she teased. You deserve a medal, not just a beverage. Let's start with caffeine, Elliot replied, accepting the cup. He took a careful sip, savoring the warmth and slightly bitter roast. Outside, the light breeze moved through the clinic's garden, teasing petals along the walkway. For a moment, Elliot felt the calm after chaos, the quiet sense that, sometimes, the world pauses to let you breathe. But of course, the universe has a sense of humor. A commotion arose outside, a group of kids chasing a runaway kite across the clinic's parking lot, almost colliding with Mrs. Thompson carrying Mr. Whiskers in a carrier. Elliot and Leela dashed out just in time. You think life will ever be quiet? Elliot asked, catching a fluttering ribbon. Leela shrugged, smiling. Quiet isn't as fun. It became clear to Elliot that the cat's fall had sparked more than laughter. It had ignited community bonds. Neighbors began stopping by, asking for advice about pet safety, borrowing ladders, and sharing stories of their own near misses. The incident became a lens through which people noticed each other more. The elderly checking on children, teenagers helping elders with heavy packages, strangers exchanging smiles over spilled lemonade from the previous day. Even Sam Rivera arrived, still recording, claiming he was making a documentary on small-town heroism. Elliot laughed, remembering how he'd slipped on the muffin only 24 hours ago. "You're persistent," he said. "Legendary," Sam replied, nearly tripping over a garden hose this time. Meanwhile, Mr. Whiskers had decided to grace the clinic's rooftop again, his tail flicking with subtle authority. Elliot watched as the cat surveyed the garden, the streets beyond, and even the small group of neighbors who had gathered to admire the new flower beds. The feline seemed to be saying, "See, you all survived, and look how cute I am." Elliot felt a shift within himself, a quiet realization that mirrored the cat's literal survival. Life can toss you off balance, but there is always a landing if you pay attention, keep humor close, and accept a little help. It was a lesson he couldn't have learned from a manual, only from witnessing chaos and soft landings firsthand. The afternoon faded into golden hour. Light dusted the leaves of the oak trees, reflecting off the wet cobblestones where the party had left remnants of confetti, spilled soda, and cheerful debris. Neighbors lingered, enjoying the warmth, the shared laughter, and the simplicity of being present. Elliot joined Mrs. Thompson on the porch, both of them watching Mr. Whiskers pour at the rooftop gutter. "You know," she said, "he's a bit like life, isn't he?" Elliot tilted his head, meaning, "You fall, you tumble, sometimes you land on boxes, and sometimes someone catches you, or you just figure it out yourself. But it's all part of the show." Elliot smiled, realizing how true it was. In the midst of public spectacles, near disasters, and slapstick chaos, there were lessons to learn: resilience, community, humor, and grace under pressure. Even small victories counted. Even laughter counted. By evening, the block party was winding down. Lights strung across the square flickered on, casting a warm glow on the brick buildings, the small fountains, and the flower beds. Children were carried home by tired parents, dogs trotted alongside leashed owners, and the local band packed up instruments, yawning yet satisfied. Elliot returned to his house, still humming the slightly offbeat tune from the band. Mr. Whiskers, ever vigilant, followed him in spirit from the café rooftop, tail swishing like a punctuation mark to the day's narrative. Elliot poured himself a glass of iced tea and sat on the back porch, watching the sun dip behind the maple trees. In that quiet moment, he understood the story the day had written. Sometimes, you are flung from rooftops, from mistakes, from public embarrassment. But if you can laugh, accept help, and maintain perspective, you can land safely, sometimes literally, sometimes metaphorically. And the view from your safe landing. It's always worth the tumble. He scribbled a note in his journal. 1. Life is unpredictable. 2. Humor helps. 3. Community saves you more often than you think. 4. Even near falls teach lessons. 5. Celebrate safe landings, no matter how small. And as the evening breeze carried the scent of spring blossoms, Elliot knew one thing for certain: Mr. Whiskers had landed safe. And in doing so, he had reminded an entire town how to do the same. The narrator chuckled softly, voice tinged with irony and warmth. Elliot Harper didn't become a hero that day. He just kept moving, kept laughing, and remembered that falling, in life, in public, in Eagle Ridge, is less terrifying when you know someone's watching, someone's cheering, and sometimes, you land exactly where you're supposed to. The camera pulls back in cinematic grandeur. Rooftops, cobblestone streets, children chasing fireflies, string lights twinkling, neighbors waving from porches. Even the cat sits high above, tail curled proudly, a tiny monarch of Eagle Ridge, proof that even falls can have happy endings. Fade to black.
Like and subscribe if you want daily dose of happiness and motivation.